Happy holidays, love, and welcome back to my channel. And for those of you who are new to my channel, I'm so happy to have you, and I hope you fall in love with my content and decide to subscribe. So today we are talking about bunching, okay? Bunching with locks. Okay, let me start off by saying bunching is not, let me say it again, bunching is not a negative thing. It is a process. So what is bunching? Bunching is pretty much when you are locked, right? Whether you decide to lock with 2-strand twists, coils, interlocking, you may experience bunching. And bunching, honestly, guys, it's a necessary process for the locking method, okay? It's just some people will experience more bunching than others, and I will tell you why, okay? But first of all, bunching is literally when the hair is, when your strands of hair comes together, right? Whether you coil, 2-strand twist, interlock, when the strands of hair come together, they start marrying together. And the bunching process starts by the hair matting. When the hair starts to mat, the hair starts to bunch together. And when it starts to bunch together, it creates that locking technique, or that, the lock that we want, okay? Bunching become undesirable for some people depending on the type of locks you have. Y'all, bunching has always existed. Most of the time when we're starting off with coils or 2-strand twists or just free forming, their hair bunches to lock. You have interlocking that has that uniform look, so people with that who started their locks that way tend to do not want any bunching, okay? And so the bunching really is a part of the locking process. Now, when I say bunching is required or necessary for the locking process, it's because bunching is matted hair. Matted hair leads to lock hair. So that is why bunching, to me, is a necessary process. So now that we've talked about what is bunching, I'm going to talk about when you will typically see bunching, because bunching looks different depending on the texture of your hair. And when I say texture, I'm talking about your curl pattern. Do you have a loose curl pattern? Do you have a tight curl pattern? So bunching will look differently depending on your texture or curl pattern. Bunching will look different depending on the size of your lock, and bunching will look different depending on your locking method that you chose to lock your hair. Okay, guys, so I tried to create some examples for you guys, so I hope you can follow along with me in my mannequin. Okay, all right, so bunching. Okay, so this is a crochet lock. So with crochet lock, you will not experience any bunching, because when you crochet, it is tight, it is solid. There's no air or weak points in there. Unless someone did a really terrible job with your crochet lock, then that's a different story. But very solid, no loose ends. This is pretty much no bunching, right? This is an interlock. So with interlocking, if it is tight and solid all the way through, meaning no loose spaces, no spaces in between the lock, you should not experience any bunching. If your ends are loose a little bit, it will bunch. And I will show you an example of my hair. It will bunch, but that bunching is normal because you need that mat. You need it to mat in order for the ends to start locking. Some people ends won't lock, but that's fine. But you need it to mat in order for it to start locking. And that matting will look like bunching. This won't will not, if it continues, if it doesn't unravel through the shampooing process or anything like that, you will not experience any bunching. Moving on to this example. So with this example, I tried to create a bad one for you guys. It's hard to do that sometimes, but let's just say this end was unravel, because you know, some people be locking folks' hair and leaving a whole bunch of hair out because they don't want to lock the whole thing. Or they can't lock the whole thing, depending if you're starting with relaxed ends or heat damage ends. So let's say you had like this much hair out, right? I'm hoping you guys can see. Maybe let me bring my camera back some. If you're starting with a bunch of hair out, right? Let's just say you have like more than 2 inches of hair out, right? So this loose hair is going to try to lock. And if it stays loose and it is not put in protective style or anything like that, it will start to lock, but it will start bunching and creating the fat ends that some of you guys see in your locks. Also, if there's room in between your lock, like you see right here, it's not tight, right? That hair, the lock condenses and mats and try to lock. So if there's room in between your lock, you will experience some bunching. So, and what it will look like is pretty much hair drawing up, trying to bunch, and will start creating that butterfly effect, right? It will start bunching, and before you know it, you have a big old knot in the middle of your lock. So you can have a knot here, you can have knots in the middle of your lock. So I hope that makes sense. So anytime there's room or space in your lock, there is potential. There's potential for your hair to bunch. That's interlocking, right? Two-strand twist. Two-strand twist, because two-strand twist is softer, fluffier, not solid. It will, you see how if you do this, you see the room in between the locks. You may experience some bunching if you have a looser curl pattern, especially, and even with interlocking, if you have a looser curl pattern, like my mannequin here has a looser curl pattern. So my mannequin is most likely to experience bunching over time. And so I hope that makes sense. So with a two-strand twist, because when you two-strand twist, there's room, it is going to create some bunching, especially for someone with a looser curl pattern. Someone with a tighter curl pattern won't experience it as much. Okay. So I hope that example made, and how the hair starts to bunch. Just think about, you have several strands making up a lock, right? So with those several strands, just think about, some of them are drawing up and some aren't. And so because some are drawing up and leaving others behind, when some pull and the rest aren't pulling, then it creates this bent look, right? And that's how bunching and everything starts to form. So ways that you can avoid bunching: make sure if you are interlock, make sure there aren't any holes in your lock. Make sure that the ends are, if you're going to have any hair left out in your ends, that you only have about an inch or less than an inch out. The more hair you have out, the more bulky your ends will be when it starts to lock. If you are two-strand twist and you have a curl, looser curl pattern, try to put your hair in, protective styles. Protective styles help the hair to stretch. So if the hair is stretching, then you will not worry about, you won't have to worry about it trying to draw up to bunch, because the bunching happens when the hair draws up, and the hair is going to draw up to try to lock. So that bunching happens when there's room or space in the lock. So if you want to avoid that, protective styles, braiding your hair during the shampooing process, all of that will help. Okay. And I am going to show you guys videos of real live examples on some of my clients as we go. Okay. Okay, guys. So you know how I said in my locks, I have some bunching. As most of you guys know, I cut my hair few months ago and colored, so I've had some unraveling. So with some unraveling, that means loose ends, right? So with the loose ends means that my hair, the ends of my lock, have to start that locking process again, and that locking process requires the hair to mat in order for it to lock. So it bunches, but that bunching is normal and a part of the process. So let me show you what I mean. So you see this lock, right? You see how it goes thin and then towards the end is a little bit bulky. That locking process, that is normal. That is normal bunching. I hope you guys can see. This is normal bunching, okay? Here's another example. This is another one. You see how skinny it is, and then you come towards the end and it's a little bit bulky. Y'all see that? That is bunching. But that is normal bunching, okay? Because it's not like so huge that you're like, oh my God. It's because the loose hair shrivels up, and when it shrivels up, it bunches. It shrinks, it shrivels, creating a mat where it bunches, right? Here's some. Here's one. Y'all see this? You see that? So some people refer to this as the budding process, but it's all. Now, some people have less than others if you care for your ends, but you guys, if your hair is looking like this, I wouldn't go running and crying about it, you know? Some of you guys be like, oh my God, I gotta cut my locks. No, please don't. See, this is this is normal, but that end, the ends of this lock is still open. It's not completely locked. It may lock, I don't know, but it's still open. And it's like this because it didn't do what the others did, because it wasn't, this one did not slip, meaning it did not have a lot of loose hair at the end. So there was not a lot of shriveling up and bunching to do with this one, okay? So the less hair you have loose and out of the lock, the less bunching you will have. See this? I had more hair out and loose, so it bunched. See, this is a little bit of hair that was out. So because of that, there's not any, it's going to mat together, but because there's not a lot of hair, it's going to mat like this, like horizontally, versus when there's more hair out, it's going to mat vertically, creating that big old knot at the end of your hair. So if it's all locked all the way down to the tip, it has no choice but just to condense together, to come together and lock horizontally. So when your hair locks, comes and condense together and lock horizontally, there's no bunching, there's no big knot at the end. But if you have hair loose from here to here, it can't mat horizontally. It's going to mat vertically, which is going to create that big old lock at the end, like some of my locks. I have more examples coming up. Hope all of this is making sense. Hope I am helping you. So, and hope I'm, clarifying some things up for you guys, because I know some of you guys have asked me about bunching. So I wanted to have a lot of examples before I presented this video to you guys. So yeah. Okay, here are some examples of bunching based on size and texture. This particular example, client has interlocks and decided to bleach her hair before the locking process completely finished. So this is the outcome of the color. So anytime you bleach your hair before the hair actually starts to lock or completely locks, this is what happens. It draws up a lot faster, creating bunching at different points of the locks, causing unevenness in the length of her locks as well as the size of her locks. I forgot to mention earlier that budding, which is the little ball that you get at the end of your locks, It is the beginning of your hair starting to lock up. It is the hair matting together, which is normal bunching. So I am going to continue to show examples of uniform bunching and non-uniform bunching. So most of her locks are non-uniform bunching. They're locking unevenly. They're just drawing up inconsistently. So we're going to have to do some fixing. She has a looser texture. So with coloring or bleaching before her hair locked caused it to draw up a lot more than it should have in this scenario. So be mindful of those looser textures. So my next client coming up, she has very, very loose curl pattern. So with that type of curl pattern, she is prone to slippage, and with slippage come bunching if not taken care of right away. So we are in the process of minimizing the bunching that she has going on to give it a smoother look. All right, so my next client, she has a tighter curl pattern than the previous client. So my client here has been locked for about a year. So her hair is still in the process of condensing. So you will see where she has some bunching, but this bunching is necessary for the hair to lock. So as the hair continues to condense and compact, some of the bulkiness will go away. That is just the process. As you can see, the top part is smooth, and as it gets towards the bottom, it's going to compact some more. And keep in mind that as your hair is in the locking process, your hair is still shedding. So that shedded hair is working its way down the shaft of the lock. So you're going to have some bulkiness, but not too much. You know what I'm saying? So this is normal. It will go down as the hair continues to lock because she is not completely locked. This is another example where it's loose in the middle. So when I find any looseness in the middle of the lock where it's really soft, I go ahead and tighten it some more so we can prevent any further bunching or unnecessary bunching in the process. And that will keep it from being so bulky. So when I say that bunching is not bad, it's because some people do not mind the bulkiness at the end, don't mind the bunching and the butterfly look effect. Some people don't mind that because naturally that's what their hair does when it's trying to lock. However, there are some people who prefer the interlocking method with their locks, so therefore they want a more uniformed, consistent lock look. So for that, for people like that, I do make sure that their locks are, more consistent. But honestly, the process, it's just a process. So for some people it's normal and they're okay with it. For some, they want something more consistent throughout the entire strand of the lock. This is what it looks like when the lock has been tightened. So that softness I showed you earlier, I went ahead and tightened the middle of the lock so I can have that more uniformed, sleek, smooth lock that the client desires. So it is pretty much me cultivating the lock, giving it a more uniform look for the client. These are other examples where I've helped cultivate the lock some more to meet the client's desire. Now, for some people, you don't have to fix it if you don't mind the bunching, if you don't mind the hair naturally doing what it's supposed to do or what it does. And keep in mind, this client has a little tighter curl pattern, so her locks are less likely to bunch up. So as you can see, all the different ones, it bunches up, but it's a necessary process. All right, here's another client with smaller locks, right? Her ends, some of her ends are closed, some are still open, but the open ends are not bunching up as much because it's smaller locks, so it's less hair to work with, so it's not going to be bulky. Here's another client with tighter curl pattern, and she is completely locked. So her locks are uniform, consistent,
even no bunching, as you can see.
Okay, let's recap. I hope with all of those examples that you have a better understanding of what bunching is, and that bunching is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just the process, and based on what you prefer, based on your preference, you want to make sure you take the necessary steps to get the look that you want. If you want to prevent your locks from bunching so much or bunching at all, protective styles, making sure that your hair is properly locked, the proper technique is used, making sure there aren't any holes in your lock and your ends aren't complete, too much of your ends, that making sure that you do not have too much loose ends out, or loose hair out. Yeah, that's it. That's about it. Okay. So thank y'all for watching. Be sure to comment if you have any questions, if there are any videos you want to see. But let me know. Do you have bunching? Are you more clear on what bunching is? Do you have questions? Do you like your bunching? Does it matter to you? So let me know in the comments. Be sure to give my video a thumbs up. Give it a like if you enjoyed what you see or appreciate my content. And subscribe if you have not done so already. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.